Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. Today I am joined by Bad Vibes Storytelling. Please be sure to subscribe to his channel as soon as the video is over. I will leave a link to his channel in the description box below. I will answer all of your questions that you guys all commented to me in the next video when I am not rushed for time. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. Number 1. My name is Craig and I'm 15 years old. I love to play ice hockey and I play on a team. After practice, I always stay behind to work on my shooting. I'm the only one who stays behind while the rest of the team heads home. But I like it that way. I prefer to have the ice to myself. I was doing my thing after practice like usual when I heard some skates on the ice. I turned around to see someone standing at the other end of the ice rink. He was tall, wearing an old hockey goalie mask. He had long black hair and an old Anaheim Ducks jersey on. For a second I thought it was one of my teammates or coaches playing a prank on me. He was just standing there staring at me. I said, "Who's that?" "Scotty, is that you?" No answer. He then slowly passed a puck towards me, and it slowly stopped right in front of me. He then tapped his stick on the ice like when you call for a pass. I didn't do anything, only stare uncomfortably and confused at this strange guy. He tapped his stick on the ice once more, this time more aggressive. I nervously then passed the puck back to him. He then passed it back to me. I wanted to leave the rink because this guy was creeping me out, and I didn't know who he was. He certainly wasn't a teammate or anyone I knew, but the exit was on the other side of the rink, right where the creepy guy was. He tapped his stick once again, still aggressively, so I passed the puck back to him and he passed it back to me. I spoke out saying, I think I'm going to call it a night." When I said this, he turned around, and I thought he was going to leave, but unfortunately he never left. But he walked over to the door to close the door to the ice rink. At this point I was extremely scared. He then skated fast, really fast towards me. I thought he was about to attack me, but he stopped abruptly right in front of me. Now staring into my eyes, he looked angry. I couldn't say or do anything. I was honestly frightened for my life at this point. This man was much bigger than me and could easily overpower me. He then slid aside, sort of saying that I can go past. I then quickly skated to the other end of the rink and exited through the door. I turned around to see what the strange man was doing. He was just standing there watching me. I walked off towards the changing rooms when I heard a tapping coming from the rink. I don't know who that man was or what he was doing. It was obvious he wasn't all there in the head. This took place about a month and a half ago, and I haven't seen the guy since. I still stay behind after practice, but I'm always paranoid I'm going to hear that tapping on the ice. Story number 2. When I was about 13, I was playing football with 3 of my friends. 2 of them were 13 and 1 of them was 11. The youngest one was a friend's younger brother. We were on the field playing football, having a good time, and at one point the ball got booted over the fence into a garden. We were having a little argument over who should go over and get it. Just as we were discussing it, a man walked onto the field with a football of his own. He said, "Hey boys, you can play with my ball if you'd like." The man didn't look right at all. I couldn't see any children with him, or anyone around the park for that matter. So it was clear he was there on his own. He was wearing a football jersey that was too tight for him, and shorts were way too short. My friends and I awkwardly looked at each other, confused. Then one of my friends said, "Okay, we will play with your ball." Unexpectedly, the man said, "Great, so I can play with you." I'm not sure about the rest of my friends, but I thought this was very odd. Why was a 30-year-old wanting to play with 4 young boys who were complete strangers? We were a bit confused, but still we were young and just wanted to play football, so we agreed and let him play. We each introduced ourselves to him, but when we said our names, he gave each of us a hug, kind of like you do with your friends. Only we weren't friends, and the hugs went on for a few seconds longer than they needed to be. The man said his name was Evan. We started to play football and kick the ball around. During our playtime, every time the man tried to tackle, he was always overly physical with us. He would always use his hands to grab us when we were too close to him. He did things that were completely unnecessary. I said, "I think I'm going to head home. I'm pretty tired." Two of my friends agreed. Whether or not they had enough of this weirdo, I don't know. But the 11-year-old kept saying he wanted to stay and play football, as if there wasn't enough red flags going on. The strange man then said, "Well, he can come to my house and play football. I'll drop him off later." My friend, who is the brother of the young boy, said, "No, he has to come home with us." The man then put his hand on the back of the 11-year-old boy and said it's no problem. He can have fun at my house and I will give him back later. I grabbed the young boy's hand and walked him out of the field. The man just stayed on the field looking at us as we walked away. I won't ever forget his face. The man went from smiling and happy to the most bitter, crazed psycho I had ever seen. It was quite clear that that man had only one thing in mind. Story number 3. It was a nice sunny day outside, and me and a bunch of my friends were playing baseball in the nearby park in our neighborhood. We were about 15 or 16 years old at the time. During the game, I went to get a sip of water from my bag when I noticed a hooded man sat on a bench watching us. At first, this wasn't unusual, but I kept my eye on him the whole time we were playing, and I noticed he never left the bench, never met with anyone, and never took his eyes off of us. I thought, yeah, it was weird, but I tried to just enjoy playing baseball with my friends. At some point during the game, I was out fielding and happened to notice the man had gone from the bench. I thought to myself, okay, see, I knew it was nothing. The ball got hit and went over near some bushes next to where the hooded guy was sitting. I was closest, so I ran over around the bushes to get the baseball. I couldn't find it. I looked around while my friends were yelling at me to hurry up. Suddenly, I noticed a man standing, hiding behind a tree. It was the guy that was on the bench from earlier. He was looking at me with a menacing expression on his face. He then pulled something out of his pocket and said, "Looking for this?" It was the baseball. I said, "Oh, yeah, thanks for finding our ball." I put my hands up, gesturing for him to throw me the ball. He put the ball back in his pocket and said, "Come here and take it from me." I hesitated, standing there watching him with nervous confusion. I asked him, "Can't you just throw it to me?" He laughed and said, "Nah, that would be too easy." I didn't know what he meant by that, and I just knew it was nothing good. He then dropped the ball on the ground, about a yard away from himself. There you go. I took one step forward and saw he had one hand in his pocket, and just as I took a step forward towards him, his hand had tightened whatever it was that he was holding. I didn't want to find out what was in his pocket, so I just said, "Keep it." I went back to my friends and said I couldn't find it. It was no big deal, as we always had 4 or 5 extra baseballs with us. The rest of the day, I enjoyed playing with my friends, even though I was pretty distracted. I managed to forget about the guy for the rest of the day. Later that night, around 9 p.m., I was playing Xbox Live and eating Doritos when my mom asked me to take out the trash. As I went outside to my backyard to throw the garbage away, I heard footsteps on the other side of my fence, along with a glass bottle being kicked around. I said, "Hello? Who's there?" Of course, I didn't get a response. I turned around and started walking back inside the house when I heard a slight thud behind me. I turned around to see the baseball from earlier rolling towards me in the grass.
This happened in the early 2000s, and I was around 12 years old. My dad passed away 2 years before, leaving my mom, sister, and myself. To help cope with my father's passing, my mom took me to an animal shelter to pick out a dog, since having a large dog is something I always wanted. In one of the cages was a small shepherd husky, huddled up in the corner, that right away I fell in love with. When this incident happened, he was 1 year old, 90 pounds. My mom was working nights, and my older sister was taking advantage that my mom wasn't home, and would constantly leave me alone. I didn't mind though, because then she couldn't boss me around. Since when she was home, she would try being mom and telling me what to do and when to go to bed. We lived in a small middle-class suburb with low crime rate, and I wasn't scared to be home alone. So this night, I was sitting home in the living room playing a video game, and had gotten up to go to the kitchen to grab a drink. In the kitchen, I had a clear view through the back door and could see that the garage was open. I headed out to close it. My dog was sleeping in the basement, since he liked to lay on the cold floor during the summer months, and at the time I didn't think of taking him out with me. I step out the door and make it about 5 feet, when I noticed in the darkness a crouched shadow moving in the garage. I froze, trying to get my eyes to adjust to make out what the shadow was. It finally hit me when I saw the figure stand up and turn towards me. I was terrified and felt like I had been glued to the spot. I knew this person could see me since the back porch light was on and shining above me. At that moment, the figure started running towards me. I was too scared to move and let out more of a yelp than a scream. But that was all it took for my dog to hear, and the next thing I hear is him behind me, snarling and growling. I could make out it was a man, but no features, as he was now frozen, seeing the 90-pound beast behind me. He turned and ran for the back fence with my dog right behind him. The guy made it to the fence, and since it was only 4 feet, he hopped right over it before my dog got to him. After he got away, my dog came running back to me, and we went inside where I barricaded the doors. I don't know why I didn't call the cops, and I never told my mom or sister what happened. One thing that still bothers me was he had to know that I was inside, since the lights were on and the blinds were open. So why did he risk hitting a house where he knew someone was clearly home? The next morning, after my mom was home, I went outside and finally closed the garage, and noticed that he had been going through my dad's toolbox. I locked the garage and never told anyone what happened. I walked my dog to McDonald's and got him a hamburger and an ice cream cone for being my hero. It was early July. I had just begun my senior year of college, but was home for the summer. While at home, I met Lisa on Tinder. Lisa lived in the same town as my college and invited me to come stay with her for the weekend. I happily obliged because that booty. The weekend with Lisa went great. We started dating. I returned a couple weeks later. It's now late July or early August 2012. My housing for the upcoming year was going to be in our fraternity housing, off campus. We had a main house, the big house, and a smaller house in the backyard, the little house. I needed to clean up the little house as I was going to move into it, since it was left pretty filthy by the previous tenants. Lisa offered to help, so we spent most of our time in there. The little house was stockpiled with furniture that people had left for the summer instead of taking home. There were probably 6 or 7 couches stuffed into a teeny living room, so you literally had to hop from one to another to navigate the room, which we made a game of it, and made great use of them during the weekend. Sorry, bros. To give you an idea of the layout, the little house was a ranch-style brick home with 3 adjacent bedrooms at the back of the house, and a kitchen and living room at the front. The front door entered directly into the living room. The side door, if entering the home, was off to the right, on the far side of the kitchen. In the living room was one large 6x8 glass window covered with blackout curtains at the front of the house. Okay, so here's the story. It's late, probably around 11 p.m. Lisa and I were tuckered out, and we cuddled up on one of the couches to watch the London Olympics. She dozed off, head on my chest, and I'm left there happily pinned down. Suddenly, the front doorknob starts to shake, I'm caught off guard because it's summer in an empty college town and we weren't expecting anyone. It stops for a moment, then the doorknob shakes more violently this time. Thankfully, it's locked. As I prepare to slide out from under Lisa to investigate, 3 loud bangs against the door as if someone was trying to kick it open. Their attempt failed. I'm partially relieved, but I'm still aware that there are 2 doors that they could enter. Lisa is awake now, delirious and frantic. What's going on? What was that? I hushed her and told her to get up and go to the back of the house, and to go into the bedroom and lock the door until I personally came to get her. She refused, but I demanded. She scurried across the couches and locked herself in the back room. I ran to the far side of the kitchen to make sure the side door was locked. It is. Okay, we're alright for now. Thinking to myself, weapon, what can I use? Shit, I wish I had a gun. Maybe the brothers left something. Shotgun would be ideal. I see a hunting bow with a few arrows. No, that's too cumbersome. Keep looking. Golf club. 6-iron. Perfect. Everything is silent, aside from the pounding heartbeat and the faint sound of Lisa calling the cops from the back room. I'm standing in the kitchen and have a view of the front door and the side door while clutching the golf club, when suddenly the side door knob starts shaking and there's a couple of bangs at the door. Lisa screams from the back of the house and I yell at the intruder. We're in here. We called the cops. They'll be here any second. Leave us alone. The banging stops. It's silent. Dead silent. We wait for the cops to come. Lisa and I are in the living room, full of couches. 2 full hours pass. It's now something like 2:30, and still no signs of the cops. I'm both exhausted from the adrenaline crash, and angry that the cops had not come. We call them again. 911, what's your emergency? Hi, we called about 2 hours ago to report an intruder, but no cops ever came. Are you still in the home? Did the intruders make it inside? Yes, we're inside. They didn't get in, but I'm scared that they're going to come back. The operator asked me for my address. I'm literally spelling out my address. The front door gets slammed, kicked again. I holler at the 911 operator. They're back. Please help. Hurry. Officers are on their way. Stay on the phone. Keep away from the windows and doors. Lisa is freaking out. I'm freaking out, wielding a golf club again. And suddenly, the entire front window, all 6x8, shatters to pieces. The glass is mostly contained by the black curtains. And I screamed the girliest, most blood-curdling scream I could imagine. I stood up and started swinging the golf club wildly, hoping to make contact with whatever or whoever was coming into the house. Moments later we hear sirens, and I could faintly see the blue lights swirling outside through the split in the curtains. A megaphone announces the police presence. They scour the area, and eventually knock on the door. Apparently, someone did try to kick down both doors, and there are boot prints to prove it. The window was shattered by a malt liquor bottle. They ended up finding a drunk dude from the trailer park nearby, who had been roaming the area. I bought a gun the next day. This happened very recently, only about 4 days ago, while I was camping with my best friend. We were both seniors in high school, and we were on a road trip for spring break. We live in Oregon, and drove down the coast to Northern California. We had a late start leaving our houses, and arrived at a little beach south of the Redwoods just after 9 p.m. It was pouring rain, and dark out, so we parked on a dirt road that had access to the beach, and decided against walking down the sand to set up camp. My friend drives a Toyota pickup with a camper shell covering the bed, which has a mattress in the back, so we decided to just sleep there. The beach area where we were was very secluded and belonged to a local Native American tribe that didn't mind visitors using the site, as long as they were respectful. After talking for a while in the shelter of the truck, my friend falls asleep. Before drifting off myself, I realized I had forgot to lock the passenger door of the truck. All of our valuables were stored in the cab, so I hoped nobody would come along and rob us in our sleep. After a dreamless few hours of sleep, I heard the sound of the driver's side door handle of my friend's truck begin to lift. The door happened to be locked, and I was awake at this point. Terrified, whoever had been trying to open the door would go around to the unlocked side, or try to get into the bed, where they likely had no idea we were sleeping. It was still dark out at this time, but I heard footsteps start to walk around the back of the truck. I grabbed a flashlight and shined it through the back of the window of the camper shell, in hopes of alerting the intruder that people were in the vehicle. I heard footsteps get a little farther away. Then I heard the sound of sticks snapping and something heavy being thrown. Then the man let out a long, guttural yell. A few moments passed and more things were thrown, and more general yells mixed with the occasional F-bomb at the top of his lungs. It didn't take more than 2 or 3 yells before I woke up my friend. "Dude, there's a crazy man outside. He tried to get in the truck. Now he's walking around yelling," as I shook his shoulder. My friend sat upright and tried to peer out the window, but it was still pitch black out. I checked my phone, and it was 5 a.m. The sounds of the man walking around the woods near our truck didn't let up. Neither did the frequent yells and sounds of him throwing and smashing what I could only guess were logs or large rocks. Occasionally we would hear his yells from farther away, and we thought he was leaving, only to have him return yelling right by our truck only moments later. We sat huddled in fear for a good hour, unsure what to do. His shout sounded as though he was full of rage, but never attempted to get into the truck again. Eventually, the owners of the other car that was parked on the dirt road came up to the vehicle and drove off as the sky started to lighten. We didn't hear any more yelling or log throwing after that. We eventually were both able to fall back asleep for a few hours, waking up around 10 a.m. It was hard to believe that terrifying hour at the crack of dawn even happened, but both of us remember it too vividly to dispute. We still have no idea what the man was doing or why he sounded so angry. But to the guy screaming profanities in the dark by our truck, let's not meet.